everyone, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Talking Strange, a paranormal pop culture show with the Den of Geek Network. As always, I am your host, Aaron Sagers, a journalist, author, researcher of all things weird. I can currently be seen on Travel Channel and Discovery Plus's Paranormal Caught on Camera, now in its 5th season. New episodes airing on Thursdays and dropping same day on the streaming service. So September 1994, nearly 28 years ago, in Harare, Zimbabwe, at the Ariel School, spelled A-R-I-E-L and not A-E-R-I-A-L, which is great coincidence, more than 60 children saw a strange craft apparently land nearby, and they witnessed two figures with large black eyes and seemingly impossibly pale skin outside of this craft. This experience lasted upwards of 10 to 15 minutes, but it stayed with them forever to this day. This is Ariel Phenomenon. It's a documentary based on the true story of Zimbabwe's UFO sighting, and it has been hailed by the likes of actor Dan Aykroyd, as well as noted UFO researcher Leslie King, amongst many others. Currently, it is available for purchase at arielphenomenon.com. You can check it out. And Ariel Phenomenon is directed by Randall Nickerson, who is my guest today. So without further ado, let me bring Randall in. Hey, Randall, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you on this documentary because there's a lot of different ways that one can approach UFO sightings and this kind of phenomena. And I admire that you took a very humanistic approach by this is really getting inside the heads of the kids that witnessed this some 28 years ago and the kids that are now adults, and it packs an emotional punch as a result. So well done on that.
Thank you. It's funny.
Go on.
We our first version was when I was starting to build it in the beginning. We had many versions. We did the traditional UFO film, and then we're like, well, everybody does that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then the further we went along, it was, telling the human story about it. And, not even thinking about the aliens that, they're in the movie, but focusing not on them so much as what people experienced and how it affect their emotional lives, their family lives. Anyway, to make a long story short.
Well, what drew you to this story initially?
It was in 1995. I was at a meeting that Dr. Mack was doing, and I saw the videos of the kids that he had interviewed, and that really that led me to search for the school. And then once I found, because I heard for so long that it was not there anymore, I found the school. It took months, and then once I knew it was there, I was on a plane right away. So there was a lot of questions I needed to have answered. So
what year did you finally find the school, and were you able to go visit?
I got the tapes in September 2007, and then I found the school in February of 2008.
Okay.
I've been on this a long time.
Yeah. Well, I got the sense watching it that this was a project that you have been working on for a long time. So it's not enough to say that you were tuned into this because of Dr. Mack. It's I think there has to be something else there, something very personal about why this stuck with you to pursue it for so long.
Oh yes. I mean, it's something I just don't want to talk too much about. But yeah, I had something happen to me when I was a child, and I can't say too much more than that because I want to keep it on Ariel's story, you know. But
Okay.
that event never left my life, and it wasn't the only one. So I wasn't into UFO, whatever. I wasn't into that growing up. I was building airplanes, you know, aircraft carriers, ships, you name it.
Hmm.
And I still have all those models. I'm a model builder, and in my in my whatever my own personal life. And anyway, I just want to keep it on the children's story because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help them tell their story.
Okay.
So anyway, I appreciate people do things for reasons. Great things are made because people have a passion. And personally, my passion was to get this word out that we have a problem, flat out.
We have a problem.
Oh yes, you know what I'm saying.
Expand on that.
Whatever those things are, we need to deal with them to see what their actual end game is. Really. And now I'm not. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm talking crazy, and I know I'm not because I've talked to Air Force pilots. I've talked to people all over the world. So, but I think we need to address this in a more serious way so we can get some answers.
Well, I would not say that you're talking crazy. I mean I'm not just dipping a toe into the weird pool. I'm all in. But the when you say just from your perspective, when you say dealing with, do you especially without kind of telling too much of the entire Ariel story here, because we want people to watch the documentary, but is your takeaway that these are, when you say deal with, as in we need to reckon with the fact that maybe we're not alone in this universe, this galaxy, or deal with as in you walked away perceiving these extraterrestrials as a threat?
No, I don't see them as a threat at all. I mean, there's a potential of that, and that's why we need to look carefully. Because if they, if it is a threat that we don't understand because it's going over such a long period of time, that we may want to know what their end game is. I don't believe. I personally, I don't think. I don't even argue and say things are good or bad. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? I just keep it like we don't know. They're obviously doing science things, really, and people don't pay attention until you tell them there's a lion, circling the village, and people come in and tell, and everybody, gets moves that lion away. I'm just trying to connect it to our way we treat wildlife, how they look at us. This is
Hmm.
another form of wildlife, likely. I mean, I'm positive myself about that, and we need to address it to understand them. We need to understand what we're dealing with, and then we can make decisions. But I don't see it as a threat. I just don't at all with the technology that has been observed.
Okay. So specific to this Ariel story,
Yep. Let's get back there.
yeah, walk me through some of the challenges of putting together this documentary. What were, especially since it did take a long time to assemble this, you've been working on it for, what you said, it's been since 2008 is when you would really say you started working on it?
Yeah, I'm 2000. No, I was transferring all of John Mack's Beta SPs. I rented a deck. I had to transfer them all to digital at the
Okay,
highest possible rate. That's what I was doing from 2007 to the beginning of 2008. And
right.
then, so it's 14 and a half years right now. It'll be 15 in September.
And so what were some of the greatest challenges in putting this documentary together?
Everything. Everything was really, really challenging. Because I went from short form film, 16-minute films, all of a sudden into a full feature. And that's a big difference as a filmmaker. I look at a 16-minute film and I'd love to do one because they're so easy to do. I mean, then those are hard, but to do a full feature documentary, oh my gosh. And
Hmm.
then to release it commercially, then you got to get lawyers, you got to get, it became a very expensive thing to do personally. Yeah.
It,
And worthwhile. I mean, I never questioned why I was doing it, or you know, or the children that had stepped forward to tell their story. I just never you know stopped, because it was too important, I felt, to get this out to the world.
well, as far as as far as the children go, there were reportedly 60 students that had witnessed some version of this, some of this.
Yep.
And if I recall, but based on the ones listed in your credits, 14 were willing to go on record with interviews, and it seems like there were more that you spoke to that wished to remain anonymous. Can you talk about that a little bit, about the choices of those that wanted to go on record versus those that wanted to remain anonymous, and why that might be? And additionally, were there witnesses that you tried to track down and couldn't, or maybe they flat out refused to discuss? You don't have to name names, but if you can walk us through that journey a little bit.
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that, Aaron. I respect that. Um, you know, I've met with 43 of them
Wow.
personally, and I've had all kinds of experiences. The ones that have gone on camera, I owe them. I mean, just salute their bravery. I really do. I mean, what they've done is amazing and risky for them. And there are many others who I met. I actually did a pre-interview with one of the witnesses. She's great. I hope she comes forward. Uh, and I said, let's do the interview tomorrow proper. But she allowed me to record our pre-meeting, and then she decided, her dad told her, since she was an attorney, studying to be a lawyer, her dad said, you shouldn't do this because of your reputation, and we never did that interview.
Okay.
And then there was another interview where am I taking up too much time? I don't know what to.
No, please go on. Yeah.
Just tell me if I run on too far.
No, I'm enthralled.
Okay, so and then this other witness who I knew was very close to he had something very profound happen to him, because his two friends told me. So I tracked him down. We had a scheduled meeting, and then his wife called me, and while I'm driving, I'm looking for their house, so I'm in their neighborhood, and she said, he doesn't want to talk to you anymore. He thinks what happened at Ariel School is the devil, and that you shouldn't be doing this work. You're working with I couldn't believe my ears.
Mm.
But but then I thought about it later. I'm like, well, if he thinks that, I'm pretty sure it was his wife who thought that, but if that's the answer, then something amazingly powerful happened there. If that was if they're thinking it was the devil, then oh my God.
Right.
Anyway, I've just been through so much, and I respect them all. I hope they come forward. The ones that really saw this thing and had these experiences. I hope more of them come forward, because it was a very unusual event, no doubt.
43 of the 60 that we seem to know of. If you were to summarize, would you say, okay, so there was the gentleman who believed it was a negative religious experience, and then there was the person an attorney that wished to not go on record. But if you were to summarize the overall takeaway, as they look back, do they view this as a ultimately positive experience? I know there was a lot of terror and fear when they were kids, but now do most of them view this as something quite poignant for their life?
It varies from one spectrum to the other, really completely. It really depended a lot on how the children's parents dealt with it. That's my take. Um, and whether they were supported, because there were so many kids whose families would never believe them. really. I mean, that's hard. And so, yeah, it varies. There's some that are terrified of it. Um,
Still.
oh yeah, oh yeah. You would not believe the security I've seen at some house. I could tell you about. I mean, anyway, but fear, and then you have others that are, more like, bring it on. I'd love to meet him again. It's just like, it spans the spectrum fully. Yeah.
Now, one of the witnesses is Emily Trim, and she's one of the anchors of this story that brings us through the narrative. And initially, she calls this something she doesn't want to revisit and does not want to go back to the school, which she does do, but she calls it a reminder of pain. Talk to me a little bit about Emily and
Hmm.
what it required for her to want to open up about this to you, be on film about it, but also for you as a filmmaker, when you had Emily, was this sort of immediately a lightning bolt of like, okay, here's the thing that's going to tell this tale, the someone that we can really kind of follow through.
Um, when I first, yeah, the first email, she was like angry that I was making this movie. And then I met her in 2012, 2013 in person to interview her. And the emotional, what came across in one of those clips is in the movie. What came across was somebody very emotionally available and had real feelings about what had happened. And there's more than those people, but when I met her, I think she trusted me and I also trusted her. And she revealed an awful lot and, just shared openly. And I immediately, I'm like, this is the person. This is the person, because I'd already interviewed, most everybody at that point. And then, yeah, she was, I commend her for her bravery. Yeah,
And she now will speak about this experience at conventions at UFO, the International UFO Congress, and she also makes art about it.
she does. Her art's brilliant. I've seen it. I've painted with her. We did a painting together, which is really interesting. We took a 24 by 36 canvas, and she took half, I took half. It was
Mm-hmm.
She was done in like 20 minutes. I was there for an hour. She's good. She's really good.
As you're speaking with these students as adults, was part of your filmmaking strategy to see if their stories were consistent with what they
Oh,
were saying on camera as kids?
absolutely. Yeah, I
And
did.
they were they?
They were. And here's the thing I did was I didn't show them any of the interviews. I mean, some of the interviews were available on YouTube of John Mack's interviews, but I got 6 other interviews of kids that were never, it never went to air. So it was impossible for these witnesses to see their own in what they said when they were younger. So when I interviewed the adults that didn't weren't in Max footage, they repeated the exact same story for the first time in 20 something years, without them knowing what they even said as a child. To me, that spoke volumes. Nothing was added, nothing was taken away. All these kids the same way. They didn't add anything to the story or make it more dramatic. No, it's the same story. And it's, I don't know, they're not looking for ego, they're not looking for attention. That doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
it's not there. Says
Where
that speaks volumes to me.
you have this very impactful theme of when they're talking about, or when John Mack is interviewing the kids, and who is a Harvard psychiatrist who went to interview these children and then came to be associated with his work of talking to experiencers and abductees. There's these moments where these kids are he's drilling in on what did you feel when you saw these creatures with large eyes and pale skin, and let's face it, they sound a lot like what we deem alien grays. And they talk about terror. They talk about this feeling of it wanted us, or that it was warning us about humanity's impact on this planet. So when you're revisiting this, and these are very powerful archival footage with interviews with these kids, but when you're going back and you're revisiting this, were there moments where you're kind of facing potential PTSD, traumatic flashbacks as you're speaking with them?
It happened all the time. It was really difficult to the first 5 years of the film. It was really tough. Yeah, I did. I mean, I was like doing this project, and then I was like, I'm facing everything I have to face every day on that screen. That was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, well, my crew knows that. My crew knows that.
Did
That
you
was a deep one. That was a good one. you got that good question.
Did you consider stopping at any point? Stop,
I
pulling the plug
quit.
on this?
I wanted to quit all the time. I did. But the bigger purpose was driving me, but I had to suffer a lot to go through that. So I got therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Had to.
Let's talk a little bit more about there's these other, we have Emily,
Yep.
who is sort of our main narrative voice for the students, even though you do speak with the other students. And then we also have, as I mentioned, John Mack, and we have Tim Leach, a journalist, a war zone journalist who got pulled into this story. As far as John Mack goes, so he passed away in 2004, I believe, and you have interviews with him. Now, to clarify, are these interviews you conducted, or are these archival interviews with Mack?
These are archival interviews from 1994.
Okay. And you personally, you said you had met him in 95.
Yeah.
What kind, did you have a relationship established with him, or you saw him talk, the story stuck with you?
I did.
You did?
Yes.
And did he know, well, you had not really fully begun this journey of making this film until a little bit later. Was he aware of your intentions to do so?
I approached John Mack the very year he died to do an interview on, a documentary on his life. It was too late. Yeah.
Do you feel a responsibility? Is it a burden to tell Mack's story and also vindicate him somewhat, because there are some fellow academics from Harvard that thought this is a ridiculous pursuit, even though he did ultimately, he was able to remain at Harvard despite a disciplinary hearing that was being done about him. Did you feel a responsibility, or was it a burden to tell his story?
No, it was a responsibility. When Harvard went after Dr. Mack, I've never said this before, but I was brought into the Harvard boardroom with many other people, but we all were brought in individually into this humongous oak office room, and they drilled us. Four psychiatrists drilled us and try to get, they were looking to, for any reason, to go after John. And they wanted me to say, because I'm like, no, he was fine. He whatever, I never saw him do anything wrong, And that was a horrible experience because I was from a town of 800 people, and I'm going to the boardroom at Harvard, at 25 years old? No, 27 years old. Are you kidding? And it was very intimidating, but whatever.
I don't want to make you uncomfortable or spend too much time on this topic,
I
but
want to talk about the film.
But I feel like this is relevant to the film, and I
know.
I have to ask, based on what you're saying, we can make the assumption that you were one of Mack's.
I was one of the
patients.
first hundreds. Yes, there was 100. The initial 100. Right?
Okay. So this really makes a connection to why you might personally be invested in making this Ariel Phenomenon documentary. And
true. But as an artist, I mean, this is what I was doing in my life. And when I saw that story, which happened to be personally important to me, and regardless, the story's amazing. What happened, actually, it doesn't matter who's making it. But then my responsible, because of my connection there, I had to really be objective, and because I know this would have come up.
What is your response to people that might say, and let me say, I think you handle this very well in the movie through the interviews and the archival interviews as well. But what is your response to people that now will watch this and say, these were kids? These were kids. They were grade 2. They were grade 7. They were impressionable. Maybe some were having a laugh. Maybe some were believing what the older kids were saying. And you get a group of kids together and you feed them some info and they buy into this sort of, not to be bad or devious, but they buy into a good yarn and then commit to it. What do you say?
I would say immediately, like, their stories are all unique. It's not like somebody made up a story and it passed around. Their story and what they saw from where they were, because I did the map of where these children were on the playing field, and the playing field is enormous. There's a field, up to the left where it's surrounded by trees. It's a huge football field, and there were kids up there. They didn't see what the kids down there saw. There were people hundreds of yards away seeing it. There were people really close up where all the kids gathered. Those people had a pretty, that whatever happened there, that's where the majority of the incident occurred. Yeah.
You discuss that the kids reported seeing 2 figures, and yet they also talked, based on the interviews, sometimes it seems like, it's almost like sometimes it seems like both the object on the ground, the craft, if you will, sort of phased in and out, and then maybe even, and then also based on some of the pictures that they drew, it seemed like the figures themselves almost phased in and out. So we have the stationary figure, and then we have this figure that walks back and forth, both of them clad in very close-fitting, tight-fitting black cloth, the gray skin, the big eyes. Do you think, you weren't there, but do you think we're dealing with 2 figures, or was it one figure that was moving about somehow?
No, there were multiple.
More than 2?
Oh, yes. Well, this is according to one of the first witnesses. It's not in the film, but it's appeared in other ways from other witnesses that there were seen out the window, but this is before recess. And the only reason I'm speaking about it is I've got 2 other sources. That there was 2 in black, which is what the kids encountered, and there was 1 in red and 1 in white. But there was multiple. So, I mean, it doesn't matter whatever the kids said they saw, because what they saw when they saw those creatures, they weren't on the playground at that time. So it was seen out the window. So I don't know. Maybe they're part of it. I really don't know. But the original story is two. It's just one of those. You go down these roads and you hear it from one person, or you hear it in the archival, and then you hear it again. It's not in the movie because it was only seen by three people, and it was out the window before the main event.
Do we have any teachers that have admitted to seeing something? Any adults?
I can't speak about that because of their confidentiality, but yes, two.
And did you make a choice to not speak to the parents of these kids? And we get kind of this overwhelming theme that the parents and the grown-ups weren't really believing these kids.
Pretty much the majority, yeah.
Did you speak to any parents?
Yes. I'm trying to think. 5 or 6 parents. Yeah, different. I mean, families, because that interested me. What their take was, because I was looking for the person that didn't believe this happened. To be honest with you, and I found him at the Ariel School. And but anyway, but it just didn't make the cut. There was so much more I could have put in here. But our major cut was 2.5 hours.
Wow.
But that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But everybody's in the industry is like hour and a half, hour and a half. You got to do an hour and a half.
I mean, I would like to see the longer cut.
The longer cut's coming. It is coming. Yeah. But it's good because people will have a reason to sit through 2.5 hours and hear the adults. I mean, hear the parents and hear the man that protested during the film. I interviewed him, and he had. I won't even get. It's a spoiler alert. Okay, I'll stop talking.
Oh wait, no, I'm. No, go on. So if somebody was protesting the making of the film.
Oh no, somebody in the film, raised his hands when he said he didn't believe the kids. I tracked that guy down.
Right, in the round table with Mack in the class or the teacher's lounge or whatever. You did track him down. Has he become a believer in the years since?
Well, I don't want to. That's the spoiler alert.
Oh,
like.
Okay, we'll have to bring you back.
I can tell you that.
Say again.
It's very interesting. I can tell you that. Yeah, very. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I interviewed everybody I could, like family, anybody. I interviewed kids that missed school that day. And I asked them, did you believe your friends when you went back to the school? And they're like, yes, of course. They were telling the truth, man. That's how far I went to even interview people that weren't there that day. So I did a good job. There was a lot of clues to a lot of different things that I just didn't have the resources to chase. Anyway, it's a fascinating story for me still, and it will be for a long time because I've got some questions that have not been answered.
Such as.
Yeah, they're very detailed specifics. I can't talk too much about that because if people know that what they are, they're going to do it, and I want to do it because I've put so much time already. And anyway, we'll see. Usually what happens is I'll get an email all of a sudden and bingo, everything, consistently fits together. Yeah. So anyway, we'll talk about that. You're good. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Well, you do speak to Tim Leach, and this is a man that was a reporter in Zimbabwe. He had covered battle zones, and he said, I forget the exact quote, but he said something to the effect of that war didn't scare him, or he could handle war zones, but not this UFO thing. You were able to talk with him before he passed away in 2011, and he is a compelling character. So what do you think was driving him and continue to drive him to tell this story, even up until his unfortunate death?
Tim was shot himself. He had a bullet in him. Yeah, his what he did for work in Africa was, wow. It scarred him. I've seen that with a lot of war reporters. And anyway, but he had kept everything from that story, everything, notes, you name it, tapes, audio tapes. He had kept everything, and it was really important to him. Very. And he was such a funny man. He played guitar. He wrote songs about Ariel. That's how big of a deal it was. Yeah. And I actually like his music. It's really, you can hear his soul in it, so to speak. I've been listening to it quite a bit lately because the film's come out, because I really wish he was here to see it.
What would you say to John Mack and Tim Leach if you had the opportunity to speak with them now, and with the movie being released now? What would you say to these guys?
I'd say I picked up the ball where you left off, and someone will do that with me someday, And the honor for me personally is like when somebody dies that I love. I whatever their project they were working on, like cars or planes or whatever, I finish it. My grandfather's piano, I rebuilt it. Like, that's kind of what you do for me. And I'm honoring John for his sacrifice, to be honest with you, and Tim for his, because he paid the price, you know. So I really care about those men. I wish they were here, and I on another level, I also know they're here. You know what I mean? Like my brother passed away recently, and he after he died, that man came to visit me, and I kind of went through a transition of like, oh my God, that's real. This, people call it spiritual, whatever, and souls, and yeah, that's, they don't, people die, but there's another part that does not die. That I'm sure of, and I'm whatever. Sorry, we're going deep.
No, I like it, and I also apologize if there's suddenly very loud sounds behind me, because I'm traveling, and apparently this is the day of landscaping at this hotel. So I apologize for that. But
No
what do you think that John Mack or Tim Leach would say after witnessing last week's UAP congressional open hearing?
Thank God. That's what they would say. Thank God. It's been a long time.
We do have an audience question, and I'm going to bring this up. Were there any goosebumps moments that you realized the reality of what the kids told you, or adults as they are now? I would say, yeah, you already believed them, but as they're telling you these stories, what were the moments that really gave you chills, gave you goosebumps, stuck with you?
Well, I didn't actually really believe them in the beginning. I just want to correct that.
Okay.
But those goosebump moments were as I was looking for flaws, was hearing their stories again from them as adults with their eyes looking right into mine. There was no bullshit, there was no BS. They were telling a story from their heart, something that really happened to them. That was really clear to me. And I always got goosebumps because it was like, wow, this is for real. So that happened many, many times, because I was always surprised with any new information or experiences that they went through personally, and their journey through life too. How hard is it? How, was it hard for you? Some people just forgot about it and made great careers. They didn't. They never forget about it, but they put it behind them. There are those witnesses too who have families. They're successful. Um, and that's a fascinating thing about this story is you get those people that are wealthy and doing well, and then you have the witnesses that lived in the village. Completely different experience for them, and I think they're better off, to be honest with you. Um, because they don't live with the same kind of ridicule and that whole thing. They don't. It's part of their culture.
Well, yeah, actually, about it being part of the culture, is the area of Harare and Ariel School, is it now, have they embraced this legacy, or is it something that locally they don't really want to talk about? Or, I mean, has this really become ingrained in their cultural DNA of the area?
Well, just in Africa, it is in the cultural DNA that happened there. As far as the press, they're not very happy about that. I spoke to the head mistress, and they've got a school to run. They have a school to run. They're not looking for attention from this. You know, I mean, yeah, I just have to say that because it worries me that they've I did this to them. you know, that they're getting this kind of attention, and I don't feel good about that. You know what I mean? I see the how overwhelmed and how much they work over there, and the importance of that school and the kids that are taught there. I just, I don't know. I just hope people give them respect. Yeah.
How many times have you actually been to the school?
Um, I did 3 trips. I lived there for, like, not at the school, but I lived in Africa for a year and 3 months, and drove around in a car.
Because of this project?
Oh yeah, that's why I was there, and oh yeah, that's a whole story in itself. Oh my god, try that. Get in a car alone in Africa and go driving around and meeting people, and wow, it's
Well,
intense. With 40
when you
grand
were,
in your trunk of equipment.
yeah.
Boy, was I a target. Uh, anyway, sorry, I missed the question.
No, I mean, that's a great piece of information. I now want like the companion book as well as the extended version of the. But no, has it defined them? Well, I said how many times have you been there, and then also culturally has it come to define them? But how did you gain trust because of the natural suspicion of perhaps interviewers and press and bringing it? They have a school to run. How did you gain their trust and their access to be able to film and tell this story?
I had a lot of conversations with the school and people at the school. Um, yeah, it was over a long period of time. I think they saw how dedicated and how many years I'd already spent. Not at that time, but they allowed me to come twice, and then I went a third time to just do B-roll. Um, so yeah, it took a long time to build that trust. That was, and I'm glad, and thank God they did. They were amazing people. Everybody at that school, the teachers, everybody. They're incredible. Like, good examples of human beings. You know.
We know that you have this longer cut of the movie as well that at some point we'll hopefully see, but you should still go to arielphenomenon.com and check out the theatrical release. The That said, if is there enough material here that makes you want to, you said you have additional questions, but that aside, do you have an interest in going back and interviewing some of these witnesses again, especially because some of these interviews may have taken place a while ago? Do you have an interest in going back and speaking with them again and sort of seeing where they are now in 2022 and how their lives have been impacted and how what they think about a perhaps changing perception of this kind of phenomenon in the world?
Sure. I am excited for those very witnesses we were talking about before that wouldn't go on camera. I'm hoping this film will encourage them to contact me, because though there's some very, very interesting details from some of these people that is worth going back for that, you know. Um, and I hope they come forward and tell their, and not be afraid to tell their story, because their story adds a lot of detail to what happened and how.
Details that did not that because they weren't willing to go on record, things that are outside what we know.
Outside what we know.
Was there any physical contact?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did any of these students, even if you can't say who they are, did any go on to be contacted additionally throughout the years or after this event?
They weren't interviewed.
Weren't interviewed,
Correct.
but they are out there.
Correct.
So ongoing experiencers, abductees after this moment, after this event, the Ariel phenomenon.
No, I'm talking about Ariel, what happened at Ariel, this contact event.
Yeah.
That there were a large number of children that were not interviewed, but that's all I can say.
Right.
But
Okay.
I just encourage that they contact me, and I'd love to tell their story.
Well, sir, I mean, I definitely want to hear more of it. I think that this is a well done documentary and just a fascinating story. And I'm kind of keen to documentaries that speak to, kids as their kids and then track them throughout their life anyhow, regardless of any kind of other phenomena. So the fact that you did this was really quite interesting. Ultimately, do you think that this was extraterrestrial, what they encountered, or was it perhaps something that's, I don't know, interdimensional, ultra terrestrial, those kinds of things?
Yeah, I don't even think in those terms. It's extraterrestrial, period.
Okay.
So, but it's their story. If I missed something, which I don't think I have, I believe that's true. I did my best, and it's up to them actually to tell you guys their story. They've already told me, and yeah. So.
And finally, my question for you, this is actually an audience question, is how has this experience changed you emotionally, physically, spiritually, this long journey, and also speaking to people that have been through something quite impactful and who were vulnerable with you and telling those stories? How has this entire journey changed you emotionally, physically, spiritually?
That's a good one. When I was interviewing one of the witnesses, she started crying, and I was on the other side of the camera, crying my eyes out, trying to get the tears out of the eye cup. Anyway, yeah, it affected me emotionally probably the most. Having to go to Africa and survive in Africa for that long, that changed me into a man. Because just to be straight with you, there were people there that will, it happened, try to kill you. And that was like a transition in my. If I was, there was a moment I'll never forget it. It's like I either, because when I went to my hotel, or not hotel, compound in Johannesburg, and which is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Um, the place I was staying had a 12-foot wall with a guy with a fully automatic machine gun in front of it. And I got in there and started getting a warning from people of where not to go, and I had to make the decision. I either go home or I buck up. And really, I wanted to go home. I was scared. And so that was a transitional moment as well. Spiritually, I mean, the good part is I have been going to therapy, therapy groups, good ones, by the way. There's a lot of terrible, a lot of terrible people in that field. But, you know, that's helped me personally to keep myself together, and heal. Um, it takes a long time. I remember when I interviewed Credo Mutwa in Africa. He was the Zulu keeper of knowledge, and we had a long conversation about that on camera. And I asked him, how long does it take to heal from this? And he said, decades, decades, and he meant it. And now I understand that because I've been alive for a few decades. Anyway.
Well, I'm appreciative of your time today and glad that you told this story, and I
Thank
look
you.
forward to more of this story and your story at some point. But in the meanwhile, Ariel Phenomenon, spelled Ariel. It's available for purchase at arielphenomenon.com. So go check out the documentary. I guarantee you're going to like this one. And Randall, thank you for your time. Just hang out backstage with me for a moment and I'll be right with you. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And guys, thank you for joining. That a really intense, fascinating interview. I definitely want more. I need to talk to Randall some more. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to subscribe. Download each week, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch video interviews such as this one at youtube.com/denofgeekus. Give me a follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and on Patreon at Aaron Sagers. And you can follow this show at Talk Strange Pod on Twitter. And let me know if there's some guests that you want me to bring on here, whether we talk to celebrities, we talk to authors, and we talk to directors like Randall. And I'm always looking for suggestions. Until then, until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.